Well, you think there won't be? Of course, there'll be a trade deal. Very much. They want to make one very much, and we're going to make a trade deal. I fully expect it, but it'll be a fair deal.
President Trump says a trade deal with the European Union will happen quickly, and the Treasury Secretary says the U.S. is in active talks with at least 15 countries over trade. Joining me now is Unleash Prosperity Principal and American Commitment President Phil Kerpen and National Taxpayers Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold. Phil, I want to start with you. How fast can these negotiations happen, and how important is it that they happen quickly?
Well, they can and have to happen very quickly because 90 days is not a very long time. It's going to be over before you know it. And I think the most important thing right now from a free market perspective and in terms of actually getting a win-win out of this whole tariff confrontation is to get a deal with someone as quickly as possible. It doesn't need to be an EU or one of the major trade partners, but if we could get a deal with a smaller country, in Israel or in Argentina or Vietnam, whoever it is, just to show there is a path out of this. There's a win-win. There's a model that can be followed. I'm hoping that'll happen very soon, as in the next couple of weeks.
Brandon, if these tariffs begin to take effect, what happens to the U.S. economy?
Well, it's bad news. A lot of people look at the consumer-based tariffs, the price that you see when you go to Target or Walmart or the grocery store. But I think what's really concerning here is the fact that we are applying tariffs to business inputs. The majority of things that we import into this country are not consumer products. They're business inputs. That's fertilizer for our farmers. That's the parts that our manufacturers use to make things. So when you start to increase business inputs, that reduces American competitiveness. And, of course, it causes less jobs. That's really concerning.
Now, Phil, the goal here, in part, is to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Will tariffs accomplish that, and how long will that take?
Well, I don't think tariffs being in place will accomplish that. I think they're going to tend to cause a lot more economic harm than good for the very reasons that Brandon just said. I think the question and what the Trump administration is trying to accomplish is, can you get key concessions from some of our trading partners and then be able to reduce those tariffs and take them off, but have more market access abroad, have less non-tariff barriers, especially regulations that in a lot of places keep U.S. products out. And if he can manage that, he can have that soft landing, this can be a big positive for U.S. manufacturing, but that's the big uncertainty right now.
Can he pull it off, Brandon?
I think so. But listen, it's going to take a lot of time here. When you look at what the USMCA, the Mexican-Canada trade deal, that took over 900 days. That was a much more comprehensive trade deal. But that took a considerable amount of time. You had to work with Congress. You had to work with other countries. To try to do 75 countries in just 90 days, that is a very, very ambitious task. And I think, as Phil said, we need to start small. That will reassure the markets that conversations and negotiations are moving in a positive direction. But we do need to score that win as early as we possibly can.
Phil, the president and the Fed chair at it again. The Fed chair said that tariffs could lead to some economic uncertainty. The president says that Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, isn't cutting rates fast enough. What's your take on all of this, and do you think that the president will try to remove the chairman of the Federal Reserve?
Well, I think that Powell has a pretty poor track record overall. He's had almost no months in his entire tenure that have been within a band around his 2% target for inflation. And that's how he says he wants to be judged. That's his goal. He says that's what he's trying to accomplish. He hasn't accomplished it. So I think the president would be well within his rights to fire him. And frankly, there are only three branches of government under our Constitution. It's not the executive, judicial, legislative, and the Fed that's separate. And the Fed has to be part of the executive branch. It's certainly not judicial. It's certainly not legislative. And so I do think the president would be within his rights to fire Jerome Powell. The question from a market standpoint is, who does he replace him with that can actually reassure rather than inspiring, sort of fear and chaos? And so, would Kevin Warsh be the guy? Maybe. I do think he's very well qualified and could be a steady hand. I think the president would certainly be within his rights based on Powell's performance, and I think he would be legally right.
Brandon, markets look at this whole fight and they say, we've got tariffs, didn't like that. We've got a fight over the Fed chair. Don't like that. What effect could that have on markets?
That's very concerning. And listen, if you want to fire somebody, fire Peter Navarro, not Jerome Powell. I think because if the standard is what Jerome Powell said was pretty vanilla, it was pretty innocuous, and that is that tariffs will raise prices, tariffs will cause market uncertainty. All of that is very true. If that is the standard by which we fire Fed chairs, then I think we're going to see nothing but chaos in the markets going forward. We can deal with Jerome Powell in ways better than just firing him. I think applying a little bit of pressure and some positivity would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, Powell's got about 13 months left in his term. Paying for tax cuts without blowing a gigantic hole in the deficit causes you need to have spending cuts or you need to raise taxes somewhere else. It's been floated that perhaps Republicans are considering raising taxes on the wealthy. Do they do it?
Oh, I hope not. Look, I think this trial balloon needs to be nuked from orbit. The idea that the Republicans might raise your taxes or might raise taxes on some people is completely destructive to the brand that has made Republicans competitive in American politics for the last 30 years. You have to go back to George H.W. Bush for the last time Republicans put their fingerprints all over a tax hike, which was a total disaster for them. And Republicans have failed on so many things. There's so many reasons for voters not to vote Republican. What's the one reason you can always count on someone voting Republican? Well, they won't raise taxes. So I think it would be a total disaster politically for Republicans to do that. It's also very bad economics. We've seen over and over, you raise the top rate, you get less revenue, not more. So I think it would be a big mistake.
I love the read my lips throwback. Brandon, final word to you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why we have Trump in office right now is to drive down prices and stimulate economic growth. Raising the top rate is a rate increase on our businesses, our job creators, our people that employ American workers. So I think it's a horrible idea. And like Phil said, nuke it from orbit.
Brandon Arnold, Phil Kerpen, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.